Florida to Alaska by way of motorcycle. My buddy Matthew and I started planning this trip almost 4 years before we actually went. Saving money, buying the bikes, planning the trip didn't happen overnight. Because of all this planning, we felt really prepared, and that's a great feeling to have going out on a journey like this.
So finally we see some blue skies, and ready, getting some gas, get our wetsuit, waterproof jackets off finally, because they are very hot in here. So that's where we're at so far, getting some gas.
Riding through Florida is incredibly boring, but about 7 to 8 hours and we're finally out, after stopping in for the night with relatives in the Panhandle. I now regret not taking pictures with all the people and families we stayed with. I will make sure I do this next time. Out of Florida, quickly through Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana, and on to the Lone Star State, where once again I have some lovely family who opened their doors for us. Texas was hot and sunny, but we were grateful for the lack of humidity. On the third night, we found a nice little place on the side of I-10, which was a perfect spot for a sunset time-lapse and some beautiful starry sky pictures. Alright, so our setup for last night was we're on just next to I-10 here, pretty close to Fort Stockton. And there was a couple RV parks, but they didn't really want us to stay there, and if they did, we had to pay for a full RV spot, so we just found a little spot a little up from the road, and here's our setup. We got our tent over here, and that's worked pretty well. It's got some cover in front of it here, and then also we got the bikes fairly hidden behind this piece of brush here, and the only place they can really see us is coming that way just a little bit, but I mean, you'd have to be looking, and especially when there isn't any movement up here. We're moving around, you know, it might be a little more obvious, but this way coming, they really can't see anything. Maybe the semi's for a quick glimpse, but that doesn't really matter. So it's worked out pretty well, and we'll probably be doing that again. We start to realize we've been on I-10 for a very long time, and looking forward, we still had a ways to go. More than half the country on a single road. Pretty amazing. Working our way through Texas and heading into New Mexico, it was cool to see the landscape change, flatter, hotter, and much less green. We made a stop in Roswell, New Mexico to take a picture with some aliens. Later that day, we made camp at a KOA. We absolutely loved the welcome cookies. A very nice couple in the site next to ours invited us to join them for dinner. Jason was from Hawaii and was a military engineer. Him and his wife were traveling across the country to LA to work for SpaceX. We were very grateful for the food and the conversations. Free breakfast from the KOA, and we were on our way into Arizona. Well, after a couple hundred more miles and a lot more desert. Arizona was quite beautiful, especially as we got closer to the Grand Canyon. I dropped my bike twice this day, and Matthew had the first accident of the trip. He scraped himself up, broke a blinker, but was fine overall. It happened on a gravel road which did not give Matthew the traction he was expecting, as the road was quite washed out and there was a tighter than expected turn. Later that day, we met up with and stayed with my friend Michael, who had a really nice hotel suite with his family, who were all on vacation. Michael and his family were extremely nice to us, letting us stay with them, do our laundry, and some more wonderful conversations. They left early the next morning but let us sleep in, and leave whenever we were ready, as Matthew and I were not early birds. Time for the Grand Canyon. We made it to the entrance the day before, but were a little bit too late and had to turn around. No such problem today.
Doing a little walk over the Grand Canyon after some views on the way, and just a small little hike over, and we can see quite a nice view.
The Grand Canyon did not disappoint. Absolutely beautiful views. On our way out of the park, we saw a nice little dirt road off the main road and figured it was time to do some exploring. This little dirt road beat all expectations. It brought us to this gorgeous secluded area where we hung out and took some pictures before heading out back on the road. At this point, we varied from our original trip plans. We were supposed to ride up to Moab and the Four Corners, but we decided to gain about a day and a half and go straight to Zion from the Grand Canyon. In hindsight, this was a very good idea. If you try to see everything in one trip, you'll see nothing at all. The trip from the Grand Canyon to Zion is beautiful and overall one of the best 200-mile stretches of the trip. There were countless places to pull over and take pictures, which of course we did. Since we left the Grand Canyon pretty late, we didn't make it to Zion until well after dark. We debated setting up a tent just off the road, but instead found a campsite, which turned out to be one of the most expensive and worst campsites of the trip. Although it was so remote and dark in the area that the stars were extra bright, so a time lapse and some photos were in order. One good thing about the campsite is that we were only about 1 mile from the Zion National Park entrance. Matthew and I were enthralled with Zion's beauty. The mountain came right up next to the road. I do not think there is any better way to experience Zion than how we did, slowly cruising through on our adventure bikes. Unlike the Grand Canyon, you can actually drive straight through into the middle of Zion, witnessing its beauty as you cruise through.
Decided to do another quick little hike. Going up to the lower falls, lower pool, they call it. Here in Zion. It's about only a 1.2 mile hike, so should be pretty good. Off we go. Well, not quite as impressive as we thought it would be, but looks pretty good. We're assuming when the snow melted, it was a little bit more of a stream. Matthew and I are exhausted and ready to get into the nice cold water. We'll strip down a little bit, but not too much. Yeah, time to jump in. Good. We'll wade across, put our stuff over here. Current. So much better. And pretty.
Did I mention it was hot? Zion was bearable, but as we got closer to Nevada, the temperature started to rise. 118 degrees Fahrenheit, 48 C. It was dangerous. Growing up from Florida, we both know how to deal with heat, and luckily how to spot signs of heat exhaustion. Stopping into a Subway for a break and food was a mandatory stop. We were both feeling dizzy and nearly out of water. To add to all this, we also didn't have a place to stay. We planned to camp in Death Valley that night, but after calling the campsite and being told it would be over 100 degrees that night and would quickly rise to 125 the next day, that's 52 degrees Celsius. So a hotel was a necessity, and luckily we were able to get a nice one just north of Vegas for about $50. Before making it to the hotel, we stopped by the Hoover Dam, which was partially closed unfortunately, but still cool to see it. When we got to the Texas Station Hotel, I found out that I did not have my driver's license. Luckily, my passport worked well enough for the lady at the front desk, but I would have to get a new driver's license soon. It was a nice hotel and well worth the money. That night, Matthew picked out a restaurant for dinner, Nacho Daddy, near the Strip. A great choice. After dinner, we rode around the Strip and made it back to the hotel around 12. The next day we woke up at about 5:45 a.m. and managed to get out of the hotel pretty quickly. When Matthew was bringing down his luggage, a guide told him it would be the hottest day in Vegas today, which is why we woke up early to beat the heat and why we changed the route to go north on 95 instead of further west and south through Death Valley and into Bakersfield. Now onwards towards Yosemite. The second half of this day turned out to be beautiful. The temperatures dropped dramatically down into the 80s thanks to the almost 6,000 feet of elevation we gained that day. The roads were awesome, with curves and dips, finally something other than flat and straight. We were headed to Lake June, Silver Lake Campground, which turned out to be one of the most beautiful campgrounds I had ever seen. We got lucky and took the last site available, thanks to someone who canceled their reservation. 1/3 of the campsites were flooded because of all the snow melting. The stars looked beautiful this night, so I set out the camera for another time lapse. Woke up and it was surprisingly cold. Matthew got out first and picked up some eggs at the little convenience store nearby, $3. Today we would go to Yosemite on Access Road 120, well, as far as we could. Turns out June 22nd there's still quite a bit of snow and the road was closed. But the first 15 miles was breathtaking, absolutely stunningly gorgeous. I need to go back someday. It was also amazing considering yesterday we were in the flat, hot desert and today we were next to walls of snow and nearly 10,000 feet high. A couple hundred miles can really take you to another world, a winter world this time. We really needed to get moving in the correct direction, but we wanted to explore one more road that was recommended to us, 108. A crazy road with tight corners and up to a 26% gradient. Well worth our time. Okay, back on 89. We stopped at Lake Tahoe for lunch at the Burger Lounge. Then we went to a little print shop to fax some forms so I could get another driver's license mailed to my relatives in Washington. Big thank you to my parents who coordinated most of that. The rest of the day was great, almost no cars and beautiful weather. We made it to our campsite for the night, just in time to watch the sunset. Thank you for watching part 1 of the Grand Alaskan Adventure. Please like and subscribe. I will be making parts 2, 3, and 4, and there will be many other adventures I'd love to post on here. Thanks for watching.